9th, 2025 of the Lincoln County Board of Education. Our first order is Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The vision statement. The vision of Lincoln County Schools is to empower every student with the knowledge and skills necessary to become college, career, and citizenship ready by providing high quality education and enriching opportunities in every classroom every day. Our mission statement: every student, every classroom, every day, college, career, and citizenship ready. We will set the meeting agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Tyler first and Jen second. Phil, I'm sorry. We have the first item on, yeah, I need a lot of help. All right, a vote. Lisa. Phil.
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
And I vote yes. You can see this is going to be real exciting. I'm in charge of it. All right, the next item is the proclamation of our School Board Recognition Month. Judge Adams.
To all whom these presents shall come, whereas the greatest resource of this community is its people, and from that resource comes an element vital to the community's future, the success of its children, and whereas that success depends largely on those children being able to amass knowledge and skills that will aid in their individual development and advancement in life, and whereas our Lincoln County Public Schools are an integral element in our children's development through excellence in classroom instruction and life lessons about citizenship and involvement. And whereas key players in a well-operated, effective public school system are the community representatives who are elected to the Board of Education. And whereas Christine Killen, Jennifer Broadbent, Tyler McGuffey, Philip Coots, and Lisa Gillum have proven themselves as dedicated advocates for a safe learning environment for their students and for the professional growth of their faculty and staff. And whereas January 2017 marks Kentucky's participation in a multi-state observation of the continuing contributions by these outstanding local leaders and their peers elsewhere. Therefore, I, J. Woods Adams III, Lincoln County Judge Executive, do hereby declare the month of January 2025 as School Board Recognition Month in this community, and urge all our citizens to honor Christine Killen, Jennifer Broadbent, Tyler McGuffey, Philip Coots, and Lisa Gillum for their devotion to the shared goal of a better life for our children and our future leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 is our board elections and appointments. For A, elect the 2025-2026 board chair for a 2-year term according to board policy 01.41. Any nominations for board chair?
I nominate Christine Killen.
We have one nomination. Any other nominations? Any discussion? Any questions? Call for a vote. Lisa? Yes. Philip?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I accept. I'll vote yes. 4B, elect the 2025-2026 vice chair for a 2-year term. Board policy 01.41. Any nominations? Nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Tyler.
We have Tyler nominated. Any other nominations?
You accept, Tyler?
I would.
I'll take, any questions, any discussion? I'll take a vote. Lisa? Philip?
Well, I nominate him, so I guess I'll say yes.
Okay. Jen?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 4C, appoint the 2025 board attorney for a one-year term according to board policy 01.7. I make a motion. I guess I can make a motion. I can make, appoint Grant Chenoweth as board attorney for a term of 1 year at an hourly rate of $150 per hour. Any discussions, any questions?
Is Grant willing to accept?
He's
has-
here.
He has to drive a lot to come here. I mean, he's probably tired of driving.
Just 20,000 miles or so a year we're driving to board meeting.
They're here, motion.
Motion.
Jen, motion.
I'll second.
Philip, second. Take a vote. Lisa?
Yes.
Philip?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Glad to have you with us again for another year.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
4D, appoint the 2025 board treasurer for a one-year term according to board policy 01.413.
I'll nominate Leanne Smith. She's done a pretty good job so far.
All right, Philip, here a second.
I'll second.
All right, appoint Leanne Smith as board treasurer for a one-year term at an annual salary of $4,000. And vote. Lisa?
Yes.
Philip?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 4E, appoint the 2025 board secretary for a one-year term according to board policy 01.412. Appoint Colleen Benson as board secretary for a one-year term at an annual salary of $6,000. Do I hear a motion? Jen, second.
I say
Philip, second. Vote. Lisa?
Yes.
Philip?
yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
I think it's important to note that this is Colleen's 10th year with us. So congratulations to Colleen. for serving
Yes,
us so well.
yes.
Thank you for that.
And a lot more meetings, yes. She keeps us all in line. A lot more meetings than when she first started, so we really appreciate Colleen. 4F, schedule the 2025 board meeting dates, times, and locations according to board policy 01.42. I think that you have that in your e-meeting. Any questions, any discussion? It's pretty much set as it is this year, correct?
Just note, some of those were off on the first and second Thursday, and we kind of noted why. There's some of the KSBA trainings, some school recognition programs, and so we do get off schedule on those months. Okay, some of those. Okay, and those are noted there for you.
Did we get a first and second?
No.
Do I hear a motion to set the 2025 board meeting dates, times, and locations? Jen, first, second,
I'll second.
Tyler, second, vote, Lisa?
Yes.
Philip?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We'll move on to our discussion items. 5A, substitute teacher stipend, Leanne.
I got bad news. I'm up here for a while, but I'll try to make it short and sweet. So this first item, I'm actually covering for Miss Jeannie Cooper, and I'll just kind of read through it. And if I might have the answers to some of your questions. If not, we'll visit with her and get those answered. As you all are aware, we oftentimes have a lack of subs to fill teacher absences. And due to a change in regulations, there's an opportunity for instructional assistants and/or family liaisons to serve as subs. Jeannie is asking that the board approve adding a $50 a day stipend to the salary schedule for instructional assistants and liaisons who must cover absent classrooms when no sub is available and it is deemed necessary by principal. Jeannie noted to me, and I thought this was important to pass on, this hasn't been allowed previously because instructional assistants haven't been allowed to lead instruction. But as I mentioned, there's been a change in regulation that would allow that. And this would only be open to current instructional assistants and or liaisons or interventionists. She noted that a regular ed assistant would only be able to sub in a regular ed classroom. A special ed assistant would only be able to substitute in a special ed classroom. And this would be a last resort if no sub has been assigned to a vacant position by 7:30 each morning. So a principal could ask an instructional assistant to cover a classroom. It's not to replace the traditional sub or be used as a first option. So you're not going to say, I'm not going to be here, I want you to cover this. This is kind of an emergency. We have no other option. Currently, if we're not able to find a substitute, we're paying teachers $30 per planning period. So if you have a teacher out all day, we're paying multiple teachers $30 for their planning period. So it's also to kind of help alleviate having to do that as much. While we're happy to be able to compensate the teachers that are working during their planning period, it's not always ideal, and that cost does add up as well. So this would just be another option. I think that covers about everything. If you have further questions, I think Grant has worked with Jeannie to kind of develop this. So anything to discuss?
Are there any caps on this, like a certain 2 or 3 days in a row or X number of days per year per assistant?
There's not a total number of days per year, but I think it is capped at 20 days consecutive. So if you had a teacher that was going to be out for a couple of weeks, the assistant that's in that room that's already familiar with the kids could potentially be the one that's assigned for 2 or 3 weeks to carry on in that room. The kids are already familiar with them, instead of having potentially the rotating revolving door of just random subs coming in.
I assume the protocol to deem it an emergency renews every day. The principal has to try to get a substitute every day.
I don't think we've gone that far into the weeds on that. For some of those, if it's going to be a scheduled couple of weeks, if they can't find somebody that's committed, a regular sub that's committed to being there as a long-term, 2 or 3 week assignment, then the principal may be able to roll to this to say we want the consistency of the person they're familiar with instead of that random.
That's a good question, and I'm just kind of jotting these down
Yeah, I'll
to
say
present
that
to Ms. Cooper so
that
that she
protocol.
can kind of cipher out that answer for you. She did indicate, and I think it's good to note, that if you've got an instructional assistant that's already in a building, they know the procedures, they're familiar with the administration, and it's nice to have somebody there that can cover because they kind of know how the school operates anyway.
Well, I see the need for this every day working, as a teacher, because it's not as bad in my school at this time, but there was a time when we would have multiple teachers out, and it's almost abuse what these IAs are having to go through, because they come to school just like a class or a certified teacher and have a job to do. But instead of doing their job, they're getting pulled to cover everyone's classes.
Right.
And it doesn't affect their compensation.
Right.
And so this helps. To me, this is respectful to the instructional assistant.
Right.
Because they already know those routines and
Absolutely.
pretty much just pick up. So
But I'm assuming then that the assistant that is going to take over for the teacher, then they're going to try to get a sub for that assistant?
Well, I'm guessing by 7:30 the morning of, I don't know.
But if it's a long-term kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that would have to be worked out. That's probably more of a principal question than a me. I'm not in the day-to-day operations of how that works staffing wise. But I'll note that too.
Well, that kind of leads into the concern about the 20 consecutive days, because now you've taken away the helper in the class who's now leading the class, who doesn't have a helper who's also not certified.
Right.
So now you're looking at a multifaceted problem
Mhm.
of someone who's not.
But the question isn't, are they going to pull instructional assistants to cover classes? The question is, are we going to pay them to do it?
No, I understand, but the program itself and how it's structured is going to determine a lot on how feasible it's going to be to
Mhm.
provide our students with a good education while they're doing this.
Jeannie shared some figures with me earlier today. I think in the month of September, there were a total of maybe 40 unfilled positions, teaching positions. And the months after that, October, November, they were all very comparable to that, somewhere in the 30s or 40s. So It's definitely a problem, and it's not unique to Lincoln County. It's just
No, there's a sub shortage
it's just
everywhere.
a sub shortage.
I think we have to leave it to our principals to figure kind of what they need to do, because you're not gonna put an assistant in charge of a classroom that's only been there 5 days.
Right.
You know, it stands to reason, so I think the principals are gonna have to
Well, and I think that
figure out some of this.
this provides some room for
Right.
judgment by principals to make a decision such as that. I've jotted down the questions you all have, and I'll pass that on to her.
We'll work with Grant through some of that. Also.
Any other question, discussion? Thanks, Leanne.
Uh-huh.
5B, our 2025-2026 draft budget. Again, Leanne.
Yep, so the draft budget has to be complete by the end of January. So we're already working on our budget for 25-26 school year. Like I say often, pretty much we're working on some budget for some year at any given time. And so it's very preliminary in nature, of course. It doesn't include any of our grant money. And then in May, we will be approving the tentative budget. And then in September, that's when we complete our working budget and submit to KDE. So if you have my talking points, I'll just read through those and we can entertain questions or comments as we go. The total draft budget for Fund 1, which is our general fund, is $45 million, which is a very similar amount to our current year. As you all know, SEEK is our largest source of income within the general fund, and I have it estimated at $15.5 million. The good news is the legislature has increased the per student amount that we are funded. For next year, it will be $4,586 per average daily attendance. In the current year, it's $4,326. The year before that, it was $4,200. When I started in 2020, it was at even $4,000. So we're appreciative to see the responsive efforts within the state budget to keep that number going up. So that is helpful. I think 15.5 million is a bit low, but I always budget conservatively. And, you know, we're hoping that our student numbers can kind of maintain where they're at, but I don't want to overestimate what that number will come in at. The contingency that I have built into the budget is $5.5 million. That's 17% of the general fund. And we are only mandated to have a 2% contingency. So we're still in very good shape with that. Last year, well, I say last year, in our current year, the contingency was at 18%. I did use a little bit of our contingency dollars, but not enough to bring that down. That's still a very comfortable, healthy cushion. Our salary and benefits make up 65% of our general fund. This is extremely low and a healthy number. It's lower than usual for us because our contingency is so large that it makes the salary portion smaller, you know. That's a good number, a really good number. I highly recommend, as I have for the past couple of years, as we know ESSER's coming to an end, that we remain conservative about adding new positions, adding new programs, or any curriculum unless it's necessary. So the draft budget includes the purchase of 3 buses. I did work with Mr. Krager on that to determine we would like to purchase 3 buses next year. I did add in a 2% raise across the board. Again, this is very preliminary, but I just like to see, is that feasible? Can I get it in there right now? But a lot can change between now and next year. Of course, we do have an SRO at every school, and we'll maintain that. We have nurses at every building, and we still have a very healthy contingency. We were able to achieve our recallable nickel. As I've got in there, this budget contains our recallable nickel that we hope to get equalized by the legislature in 2026. If you guys will recall, so we're getting the benefits of a nickel tax without assessing the nickel tax to the taxpayers. But instead of us collecting, so I'm getting money from the sheriff right now for a property tax. And instead of me collecting that nickel from the sheriff through the tax collection, I'm setting aside and restricting the general fund to take the place of that. And so this budget is pretty tight because of that. But now that's not a shock, and that's what we knew that we were getting into. So we knew that we were going to have to restrict some of our general fund, about $900,000. so that we could achieve the bonding capacity that we need to improve our facilities. So just an FYI, when we started last year, at the beginning of last school year, our bonding capacity was about 12 million. As of right now, we're up to 28 million. And in January of 26, we will receive equalization from the legislature, and that'll get us up to 45 million. So it's pretty remarkable, and I'm very proud of that. Therefore, the general fund and the contingency's taking a little hit. We knew that was part of it, but now's the time. We've got the money to do it, and we've got to get some facility improvements underway. So I'm really proud that this budget looks the way it looks with knowing what we had to do. So we've got no ESSER money, of course, that's going for everybody. We've got some general fund money that's restricted now for our building fund. And of course, we're always trying to stay competitive with salaries of surrounding districts, and that's something that we will continue to look at as we go forward. There's a summary sheet of our general fund revenue to break down kind of like where that money comes from, and also a breakdown of expenditures. If you guys want to look over that, I probably won't read it out loud, just to give you an idea. And then, of course, the draft budget, which is, I don't know, 50 pages. 48, who's counting? That's the no detail version, so it's a lot, but I feel pretty good about it, and in the coming months, we'll know more about some certain funding sources that will kind of help me determine more about what our tentative budget will look like in May. So I think that's all I got. Any questions? Anything you want me to look into? Yes.
I'm gonna get tired of doing this. But, so you have on here that there's a proposed 2% raise.
Yep.
Do you have an idiot's breakdown of how that's gonna play out, of what you're proposing for certified versus classified, and how you're gonna?
So at this time, it is just 2% across the board, everybody. So classified, 2% of their hourly rate, certified, 2% of the salary across the board. Now, the past couple of years, what we've done is we've done an analysis, and we've given dollar per hour to classified staff versus a percentage to certified. And we may do that again. It's just really way too early for us to go into that level of calculation. So I just put in a blanket 2% just to hold that spot and to know that it's feasible at this time.
At what point do you have to make that determination?
So as I mentioned, there are some funding sources. We're looking at title funding specifically, some grant funding that will kind of let me know, here's what we're looking at. I'll be looking at our student numbers, our assessment, our property valuation coming up, in the next year. There are a lot of moving parts. So as I kind of get a feel on what things are going to look like, and then I can be more concrete with my budget figures and kind of get an idea. So always by the tentative budget, that's when in May, that's when I have a really good idea of here's what I'm proposing. Now, not to say that we couldn't come back. I think May, I think when we approved the tentative budget last year, we approved the raises and we kept it that way. But we can look at those at any time really, but May's probably the best time when I'm looking at the whole budget as a package.
And the budget gets approved when? Sorry.
That's okay. The tentative budget is approved in May.
Yep.
And so that will be when I've got grant figures, when I've got a better idea on what our carryover is going to be from this year, and I'll have more plugged in and a better idea on what raises will look like.
And then the final budget is approved
In September.
Okay, that's what.
You look at the budget about 3 different times.
Yeah.
Right, that's- well,
That's what you, we're
There's
always
3
working on
phases.
one.
And then in January, you start on the next year, so.
We're always doing a budget.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to know when you thought you would have good numbers,
Uh-huh.
and then when we needed to finalize it.
So the January is pretty loose, but I mean, I probably spent more time on this draft budget than I have any before because of this amount that we're restricting for our building fund. So I want to be very cautious about not overestimating my revenues and really making sure I'm capturing all my expenditures and not forgetting anything. It's just the draft budget's more like start thinking about it and get an idea, but it's not real like hard and fast. Although I feel like this is probably the most accurate draft budget that I've put together. So May is when I'll be coming back with the next step, the second draft, and we'll have a lot more idea on some specifics. Too much guesswork right now for us to say, let's look at doing this or that when we just don't know yet. So May, I'll look at May. And then usually in May, we kind of decide on salary schedule, but we can do that up to June, whenever we feel comfortable doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
All right,
All right.
moving on.
Okay.
5C, school photography.
Yep.
Leanne.
So we are going to look at extending our elementary photography contract with Strawbridge Studios for the 25-26 school year, and extending the high school and middle school photography contract with Life Touch for the 25-26 school year. We mentioned Life Touch last meeting, that was for yearbooks, but this is for photography. And we already have contracts with them, and there's a little phrase in there that if we want to continue on with them for up to 2 additional years, we can. So I reached out to admins and I received no negatives on continuing with either of these. And we differentiated a few years ago by going with a different group for elementary and a different group for high school and middle school at the request of admins, and that's worked out good, I think.
Any questions? Okay. Moving right along, 5D, mowing bids. Leanne.
All right, so I'm just requesting permission to accept sealed bids for mowing services for the 2025 mowing season. I'm gonna also ask that we add in snow removal with that. I thought that I should have asked Brad before I sent this into Colleen, but I asked him before the meeting started, hey, do you want me to add? He said, yeah, go ahead and put that in there too.
It's
So-
actually,
Oh, it's on there?
it's
So
just not on the paper.
I just, gotcha. So when I advertise, we'll be including those, and asking for groups. Some groups may just bid for one or the other, some may do both. I think a lot of those companies kind of do both. But that way we can have those.
Any questions? All right, Tyler Tech Content Management. Leanne.
The last one, y'all are holding strong with me. So Tyler Technologies is the company that runs Munis, which is our financial software. They offer an add-on feature that's known as Tyler Content Management, which would convert a lot of our paper files and documents into electronic files, which are much more easily stored and accessible. I'm asking that the board approve entering into a contract with Tyler Technologies for TCM, which is Tyler Content Management, for $9,256. Plus there's an hourly implementation training cost. They'll work with me to get it set up and make sure I understand it, if we need that and however much we need. This is a feature that I've heard about at conferences that I've attended. A lot of other districts use it, and I don't know if you remember last year, we've added a few things on to Munis, and it's been super helpful. Our purchase order, our requisition and purchase order system has been fantastic. And this will also be great. I had to pull some paper documents, not that we won't still have the paper documents for now, but I had to go pull some invoices today, and it's just very time consuming to pull and copy and put back. So what this would, if I wanted to look up something in Munis right now, I could go look to see what we had paid a vendor, and I could click on a transaction and it will pull up the purchase order. It will pull up the invoice, and it will pull up like a copy of the check that was written. So it's all right there together. I mean, that's a game changer from the finance world, because we spend a lot of time pulling and copying and scanning and tracking down stuff. So it would definitely be worth it, and I think it's something that we would benefit from having.
Any questions?
I got one. When you, like, if you were to do it, how long, once you started, how long would you have to start, like, keeping all your paper stuff for, once you turn it into the digital format?
Well, for right now, we would have the digital format and the paper files all together at the same time. I would have to use this for a while and feel pretty comfortable about it before we would convert from using. So honestly, we would simultaneously have the digital file plus the paper file for quite some time, and then we would go from there to make that determination.
So eventually you wouldn't have, there's not like a rule that you have to keep it for so long?
Well, there is a rule that you have to keep a record of some kind, now whether it be digital or paper.
Right.
But yes, there's a retention schedule, and it covers every document under the sun. So we would definitely be following all that and not be just not keeping anything.
Right.
So, but especially here at the beginning, we would have both. We would just keep it running the way it is, plus with the digital records, you know, you never know, something doesn't go quite right or the process isn't set up exactly the way it needs to be. But once we felt comfortable with it, we would eventually probably move away from keeping the paper, because we got a lot of paper to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think this would be something good. It would be honestly great for my department.
That looks real cost effective too.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Is
Yeah,
that a recurring cost?
It's a recurring cost. The $9,256 is an annual fee.
Any other questions? Philip?
Is there a way, I'm assuming that once you scan these documents and turn them into digital, everything is stored in their cloud.
Yes.
Is there a way for us to hook up external storage and maintain those files locally? Because if you read the quote that's listed in there,
Mhm.
I couldn't find out, I couldn't see how much it said we have cloud storage data.
Okay.
Like, do we get 1 terabyte of storage, 3 terabytes of storage?
Okay.
But if you need to buy 1 terabyte of storage,
Mhm.
you have to pay $5,000 more.
Okay.
That's a lot of money
Okay.
for a very small amount of.
And that might be something that I visit with our technology department, because that's not really my language. But yes, I'll look into that and see what their perspective is on it.
Keith could probably tell you, you can go buy a 1 terabyte hard drive at Walmart for about $150.
Gotcha.
That's
Okay.
$5,000.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, Leanne.
Okay. I'm gonna sit down now.
Okay. 5F, shortened school day. It's really long.
I've got 2 students who are requiring a shortened school day. One of them is 30 minutes, 1 time a week, to participate in medically necessary therapy. The other one is written that the student will do half days and gradually increase as tolerated with an end goal of being full-time.
Any questions? Thank you. And 5G, district facility plan, Mr. Bruce Smith.
Okay, so, our current facility plan was completed back in 21, December 21. And there's a requirement in the state, those are looked at and updated newly every 4 years. So ours will be due December 25. So I'm wanting to get started early on that because it's a lengthy process. Plus we want to use it for some long-term planning with facilities, as you heard Leanne talk about. So, there's a few things. We'll be breaking this item down next month or next week for some votes. We will need to look at a facilitator. Mr. Tim Eaton has led these the last few years. He is with the Kentucky School Plant Management Association. Also, you saw the summary in your documentation. There is certain representation that has to be on this committee. Of course, we have to have the MAX committee. I also uploaded the entire facility manual. If you want to look at that. We'll be asking that a board member be appointed because there has to be 1 board member on that committee. We also will need to do some advertisements, as you can see in that, for some of the other folks that's required on that, some of the community. I'll be looking for some of the others, like our building and zoning person. And then once we get started, then Brad will be the chair. Brad Smith, our director of facility, he'll be chairing all of those. So I'll kind of be doing that until we all officially get started. So we'll be asking you to appoint a board member, Ms. Gillen, that, you know, she will be appointing someone to represent the board. And then the last thing that we'll be asking you to do next week is we also have to have an architect to update everything in the KTIX. And I know that's an acronym, so I'm going to tell you what that is. That is the Kentucky Facilities Inventory and Classification System. And so what they do, they go and look at all of our buildings that's in the plan that's not identified as a transitional center. So they will not be considering Highland and Waynesburg when they're looking at our need. And their cost is kind of associated with the square footage of the middle school. And what I'll have Colleen do is upload our current plan so you can kind of see what these numbers are. They'll be looking at the square footage of the middle school. They'll be looking at the square footage of the high school, Stanford Elementary, Crowd Orchard Elementary, and Houstonville Elementary. Just roughly figuring that's about 471,000 square feet. And and this is just an estimate. It's about a nickel a square foot for that cost. So we'll be looking like $24,000 to get that updated. So there'll be a cost associated with that. So those will be some items that we'll be asking for approval next week, okay? And then there will be some other things along the way once we get into that process. Then you as a board, once that committee completes all of their work, then they will be bringing this and then you will approve it. Okay? Yes, sir.
Why is Highland and Waynesburg Elementaries not included in that?
The last time this was done back in 21, they were made transitional centers instead of permanent centers.
Okay.
So it means that you're very limited on what you can spend funds on those schools for.
And who makes that determination?
That committee does.
That committee.
Within that planning manual, if you go through what's attached, within that planning manual, it talks about the definition of what qualifies as a permanent center, a transitional center, and kind of what those criteria are. Part of it has to do with age of the building, age of building systems, and kind of what percentage. I don't remember all that. I'm rarely involved in the facility planning process, but essentially, it's no longer feasible to continue dumping money into maintaining an old facility. You need to transition to a new facility to house that program. So at a point in time, under the state's requirements, you have to designate buildings as a transitional center to keep up to date with essentially
And that's
state-of-the-art
very
education
important what
facilities.
you just said, because people don't hear it that way, but we are required to do it that way.
Right. And you're gonna notice in this current plan, you're gonna see a bunch of dates there. And you're gonna see some all the way back in the 50s and 60s. Some of our buildings were built in. And you're gonna see some most recent dates, and those were updates, renovations, what have you. But you're gonna see multiple dates on those. But yes, we have some buildings in the 50s. So that's the reason, we were very fortunate to, when this gets equalized in the 26 budget, that we're going to have some great opportunities to do some work on our facilities, and maybe there'll be some other revenue at some point in time. But we have to start addressing some of our facility needs in this district. We're very fortunate that we received the $7 million, and I talked with Jason today, and you're probably here in the very, very near future, with maybe within the next month or two, be approving some paperwork and start spending, because we want some of those projects to start taking place over the summer. There's going to be some disruption at the high school, in updating bathrooms and those type things. So, he thinks he'll be ready here maybe February for some of the see it started. So we're excited for all that to begin. Addressing some of the roofing issues at some of the schools. And we're also some of the projects, the board voted some time ago to surplus the Somerset Street property, but we need a building to house some of that stuff. So that's going to be in one of the projects. So maybe we can actually get that surplus and sold. And so there's some things still working. Facility things kind of maybe go at a little slow pace, but things are being done right now.
What about the Kings Mountain property? When is that going to
Um,
start?
They have found some, I think the last I heard from Brad is they're about ready to move in. There has been some asbestos found, so there'll have to be some, that's kind of slowed that project up a little bit, so.
To be
And we expected that,
Mhm.
and so we're hoping they can start very, very soon. It's kind of slowed that process down there.
Any other questions, comments? All right, do we have any public comment?
Gloria.
Because I have to come up here.
You do.
I have to stand here, my parent reads all that stuff.
You've heard it enough times. Do
Okay.
I need to reread it to you?
No, I'm okay. First, I want to say, I remember when the contingency fund was in the red, and Leanne's done an awesome job, and I just can't leave without saying thank you for your hard work. And the facility plan, the district facility plan, I want to encourage the public to attend these meetings so you can see for yourself how bad our facilities are. And when they start making decisions, this is why they are bad. Go see them. And then I want to encourage you all to answer your emails and your phone calls when they tell you what they want you to do about the facilities. Thanks. Y'all can believe that. I got 92 minutes.
30 seconds.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we're ready to adjourn. I hear a motion. Jan, Lisa, second, Lisa, vote. Bill?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
And I vote yes.